Congratulations, you just closed your first rental property deal. Oh my goodness, it's probably been less than 90 days. I'm sure it has been, because we walked you through the exact details of what you needed to do. So let's talk about getting this property rehabilitated and bringing it up to the value of the best comparable value on that block or in that neighborhood. So we already talked about that before closing, you should have already scheduled your contractor to be at the house within 1 hour, maybe 2 hours after you close on that property. The point of that is you want to get them started on the work that day. The day that you close is when they need to get started on the work, because ideally you want them done with the work within 2 to 3 weeks so that you can have a tenant ready to move in within that property in less than 30 days from the point that you closed on it. So it's a very important step that you have your contractor ready to go. And when you show up to meet your contractor at the house that day, make sure that you have your for rent sign with you. Put the for rent sign in the yard and get you 2 smaller ones to put in the front window and potentially in the door seal or in the window seal closest to the front door. That's important because people in the neighborhood that live there will tell their friends and family and say, hey, there's a house for rent in the neighborhood. You've been wanting to move closer to me. Come on, there's finally a house within your budget, and they just rehabbed that property. It looks gorgeous. So you want to make sure that you put that for rent sign. Also, as people are driving through the neighborhood, they'll be able to take a picture of your for rent sign, and you should have some specific details outlined on the sign. Obviously, you want to have your phone number. You want to mention whether or not it's a 322, like we talked about in the earlier modules. You also want to put the rent amount that you're planning to charge for that particular unit and the date that it will be available. So what we always recommend doing in this situation is, because you don't want people calling your cell phone or emailing you on your personal email. So what we've done is we create a specific Gmail account, an email account for that property. 123 Maple Street at gmail.com or whatever it is. That way you know any emails that come into you from that email address are related to an interested party for that property. The other thing you may do is, while you're there at Google, is create a Google phone number and go ahead and have that set up as your number that's on the sign. So when people call you, they're calling the Google number and you know that it is specifically about someone that's calling about renting that property. So those are 2 quick tips that really helped us all in the beginning, and it made it easier for us to interact. And when it popped up on my phone from a Google Voice phone call, I knew that it was for a specific tenant. So I was prepared. I answered it in a business tone, and I didn't say, hey, what's up? All right, so that's an important tip for you. Also, what you want to do here is ensure that you are marketing it through Craigslist, through, we use turbotenant.com, and we have some other resources that are available through the website that will show you some other places that you can market or advertise your property. Turbo Tenant is a good one because they will tap into all the Zulios and Zillows and Craigslist and all of the different rental property websites that are out there, and it'll help advertise your rental property. You also want to use your email network. If you know people in the area or on your social media, you may want to let them know, hey, we have a rental property for rent at this address. Please do not drive by there or go into the property, but you can schedule showings, you can schedule times for people to meet you out there, and you can walk them through the property. So these are all good tips to help you advertise your property. So what happens now? You're starting to get phone calls and emails about the property. Well, again, what you may want to do is schedule an open house, a time that's convenient for you and for most of the parties that have reached out to you, so that they can come and take a look at the property. This is very important. And obviously, before you invite people into the house, you want to make sure that as much of the rehab has been done as possible. It's okay if some of the work is still being done, because again, a potential tenant will look at that as, oh my God, I'm getting ready to get into a new home that has been rehabbed and renovated, freshly painted perhaps, and has new appliances. So they're okay with seeing a property that is still under construction. just make sure it's safe and make sure you don't have things falling down and they're walking in as that's happening. So schedule an open house. Be sure that you have plenty of applications available, or be sure that you have people available there so you can take pictures, and you can use those pictures to post on social media to draw in more people if you didn't find a qualified applicant through that first open house. So those are a couple things you could do there. And obviously, just talk to as many people about the property as possible. And when you're answering your calls, be professional, be polite, ask people, what is the reason that you're looking to move? What about this neighborhood? Is it close to your child's school? Is it close to your family? Why is this a good neighborhood for you? It really helps to know that so that you can try to meet their needs, or whether or not it's even the right house for them. So always talk about that and make sure that you're very clear about how much it costs in the rent and what the deposit requirements are. If you have a specific criteria that you're looking for us, we obviously want copies of identification, social security cards, and proof of their income. And all of that information can be uploaded through either of the websites that we've mentioned here today. There's another website that we love tremendously because it also helps us to screen our tenants. That's a big part of this process, is being able to screen your tenant. When you're screening your tenant, you want to be able to check their income as a verification. So you want to get check stubs and call their employer or call whatever information is listed there as the person that's paying them. Secondly, you want to ensure that you are checking their credit history, as specifically as it relates to their rental history. Did they pay rent at their previous apartment? Do they have any apartments where they were evicted for certain reasons, especially due to damage? If you have someone that shows in their screening process that they've damaged properties, or you contacted the previous apartment property and they mentioned that they didn't pay their final rent and they left the place in shambles, you probably want to steer away from them no matter how strong their income turns out to be verified. So those are things, again, this is your property. This is a house that you want to be able to rent out to several tenants down the line, or one good tenant for several years, so that you can continue to return your investment in a positive cash flow and also build the equity up. So you don't need people in your house that are going to tear it down. So the site that we use that helps us to screen tenants and also manage tenants is cozy.co. COZY.co, and it should have appeared on your screen here. And that is a site that allows my tenants to get screened, and also after we've accepted them, they can submit their maintenance requests through that site. And it's a great way for us to manage properties, especially if you want to manage properties that are in further distances from where you live. Almost all of our rental properties are more than 100 miles away from where we live. So it's always good to have a tool or a resource that will allow you to manage your tenants without you physically being there. So that's a very important part of it. So those are some things that you can do to advertise your property. The house should already be being rehabbed. We have some downloadable documents that will walk you through the very specific details about the rehab. I don't want to go into all of that right now, but what I do want to tell you about the rehab is that you must ensure that you're following a certain flow of things. Obviously you don't want to do the painting before you're having new fixtures put in, because that could cause the paint to chip or cause things like that to happen. So you just want to be sure that there's an order and flow, and we do have a checklist for you to download that will help you walk through all of the rehab process and ensure that your general contractor is following the required steps that you've asked for. There is something known as a scope of work, and the scope of work is what your contractor should be working off of. The scope of work is a very, very detailed outline of the exact things that you're asking them to do, the exact type of appliances that you're putting in, the exact color of paint that you want to put on the walls, the ceiling fan brand that you want in there. That scope of work is so critical, because what you don't want to do is tell a contractor, yeah, put 3 ceiling fans in. And when you come back to look at the house, they've purchased the cheapest ceiling fans ever, and they're not meeting the color scheme that you want for the house and things like that. So it's important that you take the time to do your scope of work and ensure that it meets what your finished product is in your mind. You got to visualize that stuff and ensure that the contractor is following that. We've talked about ensuring that they have insurance and the W-9 form is in your possession before they start working on your